But Kevin, let's do a quick one. Starting at the QB position, obviously Josh Allen, Mitchell Trubisky going to IR, and a quarterback not on the roster. Is that where we're at there at QB?
They're going to keep 2 quarterbacks on the roster. It's just a matter of which 2. So Josh and Huntley, Heineke, Trubisky.
I don't think Huntley's or Heineke's going to be available. I think Trubisky's going to IR. I think they make a move for a quarterback, and they do it early next week to get him up to speed. I'm going to go Huntley. Let's just say Huntley. I mean, there's no better guess. So let's go Josh Allen and Huntley, Mitch Trubisky on IR, and
DiNucci on the practice squad.
Sure, we'll go DiNucci on the practice squad. That's fine with me.
Okay. So 2 quarterbacks, and then getting into the running backs.
I think that's the 3. I think that's pretty much locked up with Ty Johnson coming back and showing something. Ray Davis obviously is running back to James Cook. I think that's pretty much a lock.
I do want to come back to this, though, because if there's a chance to put Darrington Evans or Frank Gore on, I think that we might have to consider it, because I was very impressed with how they ran the ball Saturday night. But it's going to come down to a numbers game. And I remember that's what we said a few weeks ago when we did this. So for now, we'll say those 3 and then Gilliam as a fullback. But we might have to circle back.
Yep, we'll circle back to that if there's a position. At receiver, I'm going 5, man. Like, I just don't see enough from some of those with Claypool going down and Shorter not doing anything. And Hamler looks like he's not going to win the return job. It looks like he's going to Hardy. I don't know. Like, I think the Bills need to pick a roster spot and go 5. But are you still rostering Shavers or Hamler? Or what are you doing behind the first 4? I think they still roster MVS. What are you thinking?
I was going to say, are you putting MVS on IR, or are you just putting him on the roster? And like Kyle said, you can just make him inactive for
I'm putting him on the roster and inactive. Yeah.
Quick question. How many guys can they put on the IR?
As many as they want, but Kyle just said that you can only put 2 on as now to begin the season. But then you can do the practice or the parking lot cuts where you cut Reed Ferguson and you keep a guy on your roster and then put him on IR. So you can put as many guys as you want on IR, but if ineligible to return, they have to make the roster minus the 2 exemptions they now give you. Okay. So you can only put 2 guys on IR that can return. If they want to return more than that, they have to start doing the parking lot shenanigans of, okay, you're getting cut, etc.
I was going to say Trubisky and Morris, but you have Milano for that. So it's Milano and Trubisky, and then Quentin Morris. Should we jump ahead to tight end? Like, what do you do with Quentin Morris?
I got him on IR. He's one. I got.
Is that a parking lot cut then?
Yeah, you got to have a parking lot third for a parking lot cut. I think you need to have 2 parking lot cuts. So I think that you go the 3 guys we're talking about and 1 parking lot cut at the moment, but you're probably going to need, is there another parking lot cut we're going to need? Maybe you're going to need 1 or 2 parking lot cuts. Reed Ferguson is usually one of them. Who?
Do you think you have to do that with Spector? Put him on IR? Did we talk about Spector with Kyle? Did he give his diagnosis? I forgot to ask him about Spector.
We didn't talk about Spector. He didn't bring him up, so he didn't seem overly like needing to bring up Spector. But
is he practicing again, or is he still hurt?
Dude, I told you every year we try to put him on our roster. I just leave him off now because he's always hurt.
I know. I'm almost leaning towards just like saying, sorry, man, Joe Andreessen's looking pretty promising and he's healthy. You can't stay healthy, so we're just going to cut you outright.
Spector made he was off doing additional work with athletic trainers off to the side riding the bike. So, like, he's somewhat getting closer.
Okay. Well, we'll get to linebacker in a little bit. So, going back to tight end and wide receiver. So, I guess we'll start with wide receiver. So, the top 4, Coleman, Samuel, because it sounds like he could be ready by week 1, Shakir, and Mac Hollins. I didn't think he was going to be this high, but here we are. Mac Hollins is probably looking at wide receiver 4 right now.
Yep, easily.
And MVS, we're going to put him on the active roster, so there's 5. You don't think that they would put 6 there with Shavers? And
I think they put a bunch on the practice squad and call them up for the first 2 weeks while MVS is gone. That's what I think they do. So I think they cut Shavers or Hamler or Isabella. If MVS isn't ready week 1, they do that practice squad elevation. That's what I think that they do. I don't think they need to roster one of those guys. That's my opinion. So I'm going with 5. I don't think any of them have earned a roster spot because we're going to need to pull it from other positions. I'm going 5 at receiver.
I still want to lean towards 6 because I feel like with Quentin Morris going down now, I think it's still going to be 3 tight ends, right? Because we were thinking maybe you could stretch it to 4 tight ends. But I think it's going to go back down to 3. So it's going to be Kincaid, Knox, and Zach Davidson. Do you agree there?
Yep. McKitty goes to the practice squad. Yep.
Okay, fair enough. So I would still lean towards putting Hamler or Shavers. What? Justin Shorter. I mean, I don't want to forget about him, but I haven't really seen much from him.
Yeah, I don't think you can put Shorter on the roster. He's going to the practice squad for sure. I'm going
to say KJ Hamler for now as wide receiver 6. But
yeah,
again,
it's 50-50. Like he could be a cut that they make and then bring back to the active roster or put on the practice squad. He could be one of the quote unquote parking lot cuts, and then they determine if they're going to put him on the practice squad or the active roster. But I agree. Like it's probably most likely if they go that route, I would probably go with Hamler as well. I think that's the most likely. He was getting really great cover or separation today, apparently. I think he dropped one in the end zone from what I read, but he was definitely getting separation in front of Brandon Beane from the looks of it. So I'm going with 5. But whether they roster him or put him on the practice squad, either way, that player would be elevated from the practice squad week 1. So really what his status is doesn't matter. But I think we'll need that spot, and I don't think the Bills really value having Hamler on the roster over the practice squad, but we'll see. I wouldn't be shocked either way. I'm going with 5, though.
Okay, let's keep that open for now. What do you have for offensive line?
I think that after Smiley's comments today of saying that you're going to use offensive linemen now on kickoffs, he actually told us that. I'm going 10 offensive linemen. Where were we at? Were we at 10?
We had 10. So, the starting 5, it's not even a question anymore. Like Connor McGovern's the starting center. So there's no competition there. So it's Dawkins, Edwards, McGovern, Torrance, Brown. I'm thinking you got to put Grable on, right?
Yep.
So Grable and Ryan Vandermark as the tackles, Van Pran Granger and Alec Anderson as 8 and 9, and then Collins as 10 with Will Clapp.
I think it's pretty solid at this point. That's the 10 that I think the 10. And then you're going to put like Richard Garage on the practice squad, maybe Keaton Bills. But I think that's a rock solid 10 in my opinion. I think that's
because La'el Collins can play inside or out, so that kind of covers that from the Will Clapp. He can't play center like Will Clapp can, but you have Alec Anderson and Van Pran Granger to do that.
Yeah,
so
you're good at center. Yeah.
Okay, so that's 10. I remember we had 25 on offense when we did this a couple months ago. So is it 24 now with you saying that there's only going to be 5 wide receivers?
Yeah, I think so. I think we're going to need to keep an extra DB, I think. But we'll see how the numbers turn out because you're going to go with 5 receivers. You're going to IR Quentin Morris. You're going to have 3 tight ends now. So we had 4 and we had 6. We had 6 receivers, 4, 10, 2. No, we couldn't have. We had 4 tight ends. Did you include Gilliam as a tight end?
No, I had Gilliam as just a fullback.
Okay.
So
if we have 10 offensive linemen, 2 quarterbacks, obviously that's 12, 3 running backs, that's 15. Gilliam is 16. Now you're going to go with 5 receivers is 21. 3 tight ends is 24. And then, right? So that's 24.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll jump to the defense and then we'll see if there's one more spot because then it might come down to DB versus KJ Hamler.
Right. So defensive lineman, I think, is pretty straight up. I think the way that's kind of shaped out to be, we'll do it all together here. I think it's the four linemen. Austin Johnson, we didn't ask about either, but Carter, Daquan Jones, Ed Oliver. Those 4 defensive tackles, the 4 starting defensive linemen are ends, Smoot, Miller, Epinesa, Rousseau. Javon Solomon's probably a lock as well now, in my opinion. So that's you're going to go with the 9th there. Did Kingsley Jonathan do enough to make the roster? Deshaun Williams? Are we going to go with either of those?
So how many defensive ends do you have right now? 4?
5 with Solomon.
Okay, so it's Rousseau, Epinesa, Von Miller, Dwayne Smoot. Is it Dwayne or Dwan?
Dwan Smoot.
Dwan Smoot. Okay. Solomon, I think, yeah. Like, I wouldn't consider him a complete lock, but I think it's more likely than not that he makes it. So there's 5. And then is it between Kingsley Jonathan and Casey Toohill?
Probably, yes. I would say so.
Based on what I saw the other night, I'm going to go Kingsley, but you might just be able to put him on the practice squad because I think they signed Toohill for a reason. So, I mean, we'll say 6 defensive ends and 4 tackles. So there's going to be 10 defensive linemen, just like 10 offensive linemen. But for the sake of this, I mean, we probably have to figure out which one it's going to be. So do you like Jonathan or Toohill?
We'll go Jonathan for now. Let's go Kingsley Jonathan. It could go either way, but we'll go Kingsley Jonathan, and they think that they could put Toohill on the practice squad. That's probably the way they go. But Toohill had some sacks last year. They could flip it on us, no problem. So we'll have to see. That could be a final decision they make, but we'll go with Kingsley Jonathan for now. That's fine.
So that's 34. So moving back to the linebackers, Milano, unfortunately, on IR. So it's going to be Terrell Bernard, Dorian Williams. And here's where it gets interesting. What do you do past those 2?
Dude, I don't know. I think you keep Nicholas Morrow.
I think you have to. Like, I like Nicholas Morrow a lot, especially with the Matt Milano injury, because I said right along, Morrow seems like the Terrell Dodson, like that third linebacker who can play in a pinch. He's done a little bit of everything throughout his career. He had 100-plus tackles in 22 and 23, I believe, if not 21 and 22. Either way, it was with Chicago and Philadelphia. So he can do a little bit of everything. He's that veteran voice that you need.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say that Morrow should be a lock. I think Yola Focio should be able to make this team. So there's 4. And then is it between Deion Jones and Joe Andreessen?
Probably. Yeah, that's what it's always been, in my opinion.
And Balin Spector?
So you're thinking 5 linebackers?
I think 5 linebackers, and then when Milano comes back, that would be 6. But obviously, he's not on the team now. So I'm thinking it would be between Andreessen, Jones,
I'm thinking
Spector?
I'm thinking Buffalo Joe makes the roster, Deion Jones of the practice squad. That's what I got.
Okay. Wait, you say Spector and Jones of the practice squad?
I think so.
Okay, I'll go with that. I'll go with Joe Andreessen.
Yeah, I think we go 5th with Andreessen. They could keep a 6 there. I think we're going to have a roster spot still available. So now you can go with Hamler or with Spector. You go with Hamler, Spector, or maybe a DB. We'll see where we're at numbers-wise, but we'll just go 5 for there. So that's only 16 on defense between the front 7.
It's funny now. We had 5 linebackers when we did this originally because we said Balin Spector always gets hurt, so let's just put him on IR to make it easier.
Yep, it's going to be some version of that anyways. Let's go to DB real quick, and then we'll circle back to see if we have any open roster spots for Hamler or Spector. You're going to roster wrap Hamlin, Mike Edwards, Cole Bishop, and I guess Cam Lewis is the 5th safety, right? So that's kind of the 5 there. I mean, I think that's pretty solid.
Wait, say it again. So it's going to be Taylor Rapp, DeMar Hamlin, Mike Edwards, Cole Bishop. Yeah, and Cam Lewis has that. Yeah, okay. So we'll just list Cam Lewis as a safety. He can do a little bit of everything, but to make it easier, we'll say 5 safeties.
Yeah, we'll keep him as a safety. And then corners is Benford, Rasul Douglas, Kyer Elam, Jamarcus Ingram I have on the roster, Taron Johnson, and Daquan Hardy for 6.
Okay, so 11 DBs.
Yep.
And I think we had 10 before.
Okay.
So actually that might match up because if we're having one less wide receiver, now we have an extra DB.
That seems to be where we pulled from, yeah.
Oh, yeah, because you know what we did? We kept Cam Lewis and got rid of DeMar.
We did. We cut DeMar. Yep, I remember.
So now it's essentially based on that. Do you want DeMar Hamlin or KJ Hamler? I'm taking
based on
DeMar.
our preseason. Yeah. Based on our pre-training camp, and I think Hamlin's on the roster. So
Wait,
I think the team
Hamlin or Hamler?
Hamlin is on the roster. Hamler is going to the practice squad. I think our roster is pretty solid. Like obviously Buffalo Joe may be a reach if they go with Deion Jones, or with Spector they could. But that gets us to our number: 11 DBs, 11 front 7 players, or 11 defensive linemen. That's 22. Is that what we went with? We went with 11, and then the 5 linebackers for 26.
Wait, 11. We had 10 defensive linemen.
We had 10 defensive linemen, 5 linebackers, so 15, and then the 11 DBs, so 26. Yeah, okay.
26.
So that's the roster. Yeah.
26, 24, and then Reed Ferguson, Sam Martin, Tyler Bass. There's your 53.
Yep. So it does come down to Hamler versus, I guess, one of those DBs. But look at the roster. We're already 5 linebackers, so they can't really slim there. Kingsley Jonathan's there, though, so they could make a move on Jonathan or Buffalo Joe to make room for Hamler. I think everyone else is safe, though. Like, beside Jonathan and Buffalo Joe, I think the rest of that is pretty much. So I guess they could make a move on Grable if they wanted and go with 9 offensive linemen.
Or Lyle Collins.
Lyle, maybe, with this cap hit. I don't know. But I really think that's it. I think that Grable, Lyle Collins, maybe. I don't think so. Buffalo Joe, or maybe Kingsley Jonathan. Those are the 4 that I have right there. But also, like, who would you be putting on? Like Hamler, I guess you could cut one of them. I just think that they maybe like those other 4 more than they like Hamler. But the MVS injury could play a role in it. If MVS can't go at all, maybe they do feel like they need to roster a 6th. But you can also still elevate that Hamler or Shorter or Shavers while MVS is out for a week or 2. So you don't have to stress and put Jonathan through waivers or whomever it may Grable through waivers. I just ultimately think one of those receivers, that's going to be 3 to 4 receivers on the practice squad, and they'll elevate them for as long as MVS is hurt. That's where I'm at.
So I guess just to conclude and wrap everything up here, if it were to come down to it like the way we just kind of laid it out, it seems like it's going to come down to KJ Hamler, Tyrell Shavers, maybe Justin Shorter if you want him, and then Casey Toohill, Kingsley Jonathan, Joe Andreessen, maybe Balin Spector. Like, those are probably the bubble players right now.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think DBs are too important. They're not going to put Hardy or Ingram through waivers. They both played well. They're both an important position. People claim DBs. I just don't think they exposed. Cam Lewis is on the roster. Hamlin made the roster. I just don't think that they're going to mess at DB. They're going to keep those 11. I think that's pretty solid. If you don't keep Hamlin, so you're going to keep 4 safeties, 2 of them being coming off of injuries. I just don't know that you're going to only have Rappin and Cam Lewis ready. I don't know. I personally think they keep 5 because Lewis is such a hybrid special team safety corner. I think he's safe. I don't know who you're cutting.
I think you have to keep DeMar just because of the injuries and the value that he adds.
They're keeping
and
Hamlin,
speaking of value, like if you want to look at it as 3 nickels, maybe they're Cam Lewis, he becomes a cornerback, Swiss Army knife, whatever. So whether it's 4 safeties or 5 safeties or 3 nickels or 5 boundary, Daquan Hardy, he could be a boundary corner too. So maybe if you want to put Cam Lewis in the slot, you say it's Taron Johnson, Cam Lewis. Those are your 2 nickels. You have 4 safeties, and then you have 5 boundary corners because Hardy's been getting looks on the outside. But I just don't see a world where they keep less than 11 DBs based on how we just laid this out.
Yeah, I don't either. I think our roster is pretty good. Maybe they do go a Spector or Jones over Buffalo Joe. Maybe they go Toohill over Jonathan. But Jonathan, they've rostered. They've seen him get claimed by Chicago in the past. I think he has more likelihood to get claimed than anybody else. So I think maybe they do keep Jonathan. They do keep Grable. These offensive linemen keep getting claimed, like Jack Anderson. Look, he's been playing well. They got to keep these guys. Grable, Jonathan, maybe Buffalo Joe now with that film out there. I don't know. You keep these young players. You put these vets on the practice squad now, especially now that you can keep 6 true vets on the practice squad.
I would much rather give up on Deion Jones and Balin Spector as opposed to a guy with a lot of upside like Joe Andreessen. And that's not totally giving up on them because, like you said, it's just you think that it's more likely that you can get them on the practice squad because you might get a team like, let's just say Kansas City, because I think Andreessen had a workout for them when it was around minicamp time. And you put out that kind of film where you're tackling Jalen Warren in the open field, you're going to get a lot of teams paying attention. So I think it's more likely than not that you can get someone like a Deion Jones back on your practice squad than it is Joe Andreessen.
Yeah, I agree with you. So we'll see how likely we are, but that's our roster. We're going to roll with it. I think you can just keep these receivers on the practice squad. I just don't think anyone's claiming Shavers. I just don't think anyone's claiming Hamlin. You can't. He's a vet. So I don't think anyone's claiming any of these guys. You can keep them all in the practice squad. If there's ever pressure, you can bring one up, make a roster move.